Right, well, hello everybody, and welcome back to our little corner of YouTube. And today I'm here with Tommy, our web analytics specialist. You might remember Tommy from the consent mode video that we recorded recently. But today we're here to talk to you about maturity models. Now, we recognize at Datacove, with all of the different solutions that we offer and all of the people that we talk to, there's quite a lot that you can do with data. But before you get to the point that you could do something with it, you need that data to be correct. You need to collect the data, you need to store the data, you need to think about how you're going to use the data. And then you need to use the data, and then you need to take insights from it. And you can do that in lots of different ways. You can build crazy models, you can do simple analysis, you can build beautiful charts. There's so much that you can do when it comes to data. And from what we've seen with some of the partners that we've worked with over the past 3.5 years, there are very different ways that people approach that. Some people literally start with nothing and we come in at the very beginning. Some people start with lots and lots of information, but just need a little bit of guidance in how to use that. And so we realize that there are varying levels of maturity when it comes to data across all of the people that we work with. So we want to talk to you today a little bit more about what that maturity means, but also how we can work with you to assess where you are in your data-driven journey and where you could be through our maturity model program. So I'm going to hand over to Tommy. Tommy's going to introduce the maturity models in a little bit more detail. Obviously, I'll come in with various little bits or big bits as we go through the process. They might involve R, they might even involve Python, but we won't talk too much about that now. So I shall hand over to Tommy to get this going.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jeremy. And yeah, welcome to the Marketing Data 101 series. Really excited about this. So we're going to just quickly before we go into maturity models, I think it's just good just to understand the topic of the series. This will help us essentially get you to a mature model, and I'll talk about this. Sometimes it's not always about scoring high on everything. It's sometimes you've got to compromise, and it's learning that compromisation. But yeah, these are sort of topics, and if you kind of nail all these topics that we're going to talk about in more detail in the series, obviously we're just going to talk about data maturity models today, then you're going to get really high scorings and good average data maturity scores, and we'll talk about in a minute what that means. So yeah, today we're just doing the data maturity models, but then we'll do more cookie consent stuff, measurement strategy, tracking audits, so make sure your data is actually good. Possibly, doing more enhanced tracking, pixel tracking, or doing that first and then later. But in terms of talking, it does kind of make sense. So I'll talk why, when we get to that, why it makes sense to kind of do tracking audits sometimes, because usually there's already existing tracking. We need to make sure that's fine first before we add any new tracking. Then yeah, going into like integrating sort of SEO with web analytics and how to truly understand your content value, so through content attribution. GA4 BigQuery, that's such a big thing at the moment, and I want to talk about how it's not so scary and it's not so costly as we seem to think it might be. It's really not, from experience, and I'll talk through that as well. Sort of website data analysis, as well as touching upon some CRO. I think CRO is really, really important in terms of, once you've got your tracking all in place, trying to boost your website to get more out of it is and also your app, it can be applied to app, not just websites. And then we'll talk about some dashboarding and how to automate that as well. I know Jeremy's got some exciting stuff on that around sort of Shiny as well, make it super interactive and all that stuff. So yeah, we'll cover that a little bit later. Then we go more on the stats side of things, like incrementality, geolift testing and analysis, media mix modeling, and other statistical techniques. And then we'll finish on some just talking about marketing technologies. Obviously, we've already kind of covered some, like your Google Analytics is technically a marketing technology, but more those advanced CDPs and DMPs. So we'll cover that at the end of the series. So yeah, really looking forward to talk through this. But let's start at the first step, which is data maturity models. So what is a data maturity scorecard model, I like to put, because I feel like it's a scoring way. Again, we're into numbers, so scoring's a nice way to put it. And in essence, it's just a way of putting, we're calling at the moment saying general data. Obviously, we like to focus on specifically marketing data, which we'll go through in the next slide. But to score, it's just a simple, you could score it 0 to 5, or 0 to 6. It depends what level granularity you want to give in each of it, but you give a very strict definition what would score in each area. And then I like to visualize it in like a sort of spider web diagram, and then produce averages and things like that, so you understand which area is lacking, and therefore could indicate some quick wins to get that, maybe not to a 5, but even just to a 3. Some really short turnarounds you can do, and then start thinking of like a longer term roadmap to sort of, adjust to all your marketing. If it's marketing, maybe the marketing mix you've got, and trying to sort of do a 6 to 12 month roadmap, and building all your tools, text, get that ready, maybe doing the actual analysis, and enabling it, and fully understanding your data and all the insights. I know Jeremy's going to cover some fun stats and best, to fully understand that. So yeah, that's essentially what data maturity model is, and in particular in a scorecard format. So yeah, in a nutshell. So in terms of marketing data maturity models, I'd say there's 8 key categories. I mean, we have our own bespoke model, and we don't necessarily stick to 8. We can, we have around 10. So, you know, but fundamentally you need to have all of these within, and you might want to create some joint ones together. And there's different ways of doing it. Of course, everyone's going to have their own unique model and unique way of scoring it. The 1 to 5, what does a 1 mean, what does a 5 mean in each sector? Everyone's going to have a slightly different definition, but we've got our own. We don't necessarily follow in terms of, we cover all of these, but not necessarily like what area 1 is cookie consent, area 2 is this. Some of it we like to mix it, because we've done it in a way that we feel like works really well for marketing, and supporting all the marketing teams and getting everything so that they're ready. But yeah, to start off with, obviously cookie consent management and measurement strategy, tracking implementation, audits of those, dashboarding, reporting automation, analysis and attribution of your web and app, and then going into more deeper sort of data science statistics, and then finalizing in sort of more advanced marketing technology investments, and being able to use that to activate your data further. But yeah, they're the sort of main categories. Now, it kind of, the way we like to look at it, because there's a lot there, and it's like, well, let's start off with, what's the foundations, how to build your data foundations, then how do we start actually just activating this, like getting some top line insights, going into some maybe potentially more complicated level insights as well, and analysis. And then finally, how do we fully understand our data? How do we get that final full picture to complete everything? And that's generally going to get you to the sort of 4s and 5s in some of the later categories in particular, and really round off your data maturity and really get you scoring high. So let's just start off with the first pillar. So build your data foundations. Now, I think, well, some people think it's okay to not be compliant, I guess, or maybe just naive about it, but it is really important. We got GDPR, we have to respect that. And we're in the UK, EU, and even if you're in the US, there's so many data privacy rules in California, Colorado, the state level rules. Some haven't put anything out there, some do. So, and there's even stuff in South Africa that we'll go in a bit more detail. But essentially, using a potential third-party CMP tools help with that data governance process, build your sort of cookie banners for you really easily, and sort of make your cookie policies refresh automatically with all your cookies updated on what's going on your website. So using things like OneTrust CookieBot, again, we'll go a little bit more in detail on that, and then really enhancing that with Google consent mode. So we talked about that briefly. You need at least the basic now if you're doing Google ads, but what does advanced mean on top of this? We did cover what advanced is in the last topic, but how do we integrate that all together, get that full picture? How do we start scoring those 5s in this sort of area? Then I think next to that would be sort of measurement framework and measurement planning. So sort of a measurement framework in a nutshell is just to understand your key business objectives for your website, for example, and then looking at the planning element of that, make sure all the tracking is there, all the segmentation is there for that, and going a little bit deeper and knowing when you need dev support, when you don't, etc. So essentially a measurement plan just finalizes it, makes that a bit more robust. So putting those together are really, really strong, and we'll go in detail on that in the third uh, topic in the series. Then we go into more tracking, and again, I want to reiterate here, it's building your foundation. Does it mean you always need to go in 5s here? Because this is the point I want to talk about, because you can start off with just normal tracking, then you can integrate that with server side tracking, and also get in your CRM. So that's the left side of the column, that's GTM, server side plus CRM. Is it necessary to have a really advanced server side and CRM integration and all your analytics tools, like your, setting that up for your Google Analytics, Hotjar, all your ads activity, your Meta, your Google ads? Not necessarily. It depends. Again, so even though it's build your data foundation, sometimes having a free is going to be okay, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail when we touch upon the tracking implementation side of the series. Um, then that kind of leads into, we've got our foundations, we know our measurement, we know what that looks like. We're collecting that data, we're compliant, and we may be using things like advanced consent mode to sort of help with that data loss from the non-opted in users from cookies. But now we need to start thinking about activating it. So, and maintaining the data. So let's start with the maintenance pieces first. So audits on your tracking is going to be really vital, and doing them frequently as well. And we'll talk about frequency, types of audits, what you're looking for, and etc. when we come to the topic. But yeah, these are really vital in maintaining your data, because things change over time. Websites change, update, new landing page gets added in, this, that, and the other. We need to stay on top. New marketing data comes in, new activities launched, and then it leads on to reporting automation and sort of helping visualize things from at least a KPI perspective, just a top line. You can build more complicated dashboards. Again, that can be with the scoring, whether you want to start with just a 3 and or a 5. But yeah, at least having a foundation of understanding your key performance indicators, integrating all your marketing data all in one hood, so that you're not manually using Excel reports. I know Jeremy will bang on about using Excel reports and manually doing that. So it's a time-saving exercise, but also just having that data really clear and concise, so you're able to tell at least top line marketing performance, and what's going on a day-to-day basis. So there's many ways of doing this, and visualizing this. So in terms of data pipeline, you can use any data warehouse. I know Jeremy might talk about sort of Shiny a little bit there, that they've got their own service maybe to deploy things, so you get that data automation part there. But primarily, you've got Looker Studio, Power BI, and Tableau are like Looker Studio being the free tool. Then you go more intermediate level of Power BI, Tableau. But then if you really want an advanced dashboard, super interactive, you go into Shiny. So Jeremy, do you want to talk briefly about Shiny by our studio?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Shiny, and I could probably do it all day. So let's try and do an overview of Shiny in a couple of minutes. So first of all, I think it's worth saying, I think all of these tools like Looker Studio and Power BI and Tableau are incredibly useful. So I'm not here to say to you that Shiny is the best thing in the world and you should be using Shiny. I think the other tools will also give you what you need when it comes to data visualization. The difference when it comes to Shiny is that Shiny is 100% fully customizable. So the way I often explain it to people is, imagine you start with a blank page in your notebook and you draw out how you want to visualize your data, and you can make it as wacky as you want it to be. With Shiny, it's really easy to customize things like fonts, colors, logos, every piece of that branding that you want to put in. You can put in whatever chart you want. You can put the chart where you want it. You can put the text where you want it. And yes, a lot of this you can do within Power BI or Looker Studio, but things like fonts and colors are often, unless you're using super advanced modes and advanced versions, there's not as much flexibility on them. Shiny gives you that flexibility, but it also gives you the flexibility, as Tommy was saying before, of servers, storage, spaces in which to house your data, which again you can get through Power BI and Tableau, but the expense of those starts to build up quite quickly. Now with Shiny, there's probably more effort upfront to build a Shiny dashboard, because you're fully customizing every little aspect of that dashboard. It might take a little bit longer to build it. So the upfront build time's a bit higher, and if you're getting somebody to do that for you, the upfront cost in that might be a little bit higher as well. Where it really comes into its own is with the maintenance. Shiny servers are incredibly cheap to run. If you're looking at some of the top Shiny servers, you're only talking about a few $100s a month, and that's it really. It's not a few $100 multiplied by 10 people, multiplied by 200 different other companies that you might want to give access to it, it is a one-off small cost. Whereas if you look at things like Power BI and Tableau, that cost can mount up quite quickly. And certainly when I've spoken to people about it before and said, well, you're getting 10 Power BI licenses, what's that going to cost you over a year versus your one Shiny server? It's worth that upfront investment to get something that you truly believe in, that truly looks beautiful, and that allows you to understand and interrogate your data.
That's awesome, right? Yeah, that's really, really powerful. And I know when we get to that topic, we'll have that sort of element of just showcasing, you know, Looker Studio's this, Power BI a little bit more. This is where Shiny, this is where you can be cost saving, but also the interactivity and etc. I know that'll be that really strong comparison, that visualization. So hopefully people will really truly understand, go with Shiny.
Mm,
Like I said, it's not for everyone, but it will,
mm,
for those that
mm,
it will be super cool. So yeah, that's amazing. And I think then we kind of go into more starting to do the data analysis activation side, getting those insights more from sort of just your web analytics data, maybe integrated with your BigQuery, your CRM data. Nothing too like it's fancy in itself, but not to the sort of statsy side of it. Just more understanding what sort of attribution models could work. Was it first linear, data driven? You can use tools within GA4, but if you go in BigQuery again, it just unlocks a whole kettle of fish there. We'll talk around that when we get to the GA4 and BigQuery topic. But then, yeah, having a look at sort of your marketing performance in more depth, not just looking at, we can get that from a top line perspective, but sort of understanding it at a more granular level and really going into deeper analysis. Then understanding your audiences as well is going to be really, really important when you've got all that data in your Google Analytics, your ads, and integrating that all, getting that in BigQuery, or maybe look at it in platform directly if you want. Although there are benefits and costs of doing either or, so we'll cover that later. But yeah, that's going to really unlock your insights on who your audience is, who you should be remarketing to, etc. So yeah, that becomes really powerful as well. And then it's more going into your web and app performance and your content performance. So starting to understand your website, where's the pain points, like this is more going into quite CRO, but having that deep analysis, because now you've got all the tracking in place, done the measurement plan, you've got the right events to do it now to actually understand your website's performance, and your app's performance. We're not just talking about page load speeds. Yeah, that's quite SEO, we want to make sure that's tracking. We're talking more just pain points on the website that users get stuck on, not completing a form, and going into that type of analysis to hopefully bolster your conversion rates. And then you can start looking at content attribution and analysis. It's just a top level understanding if we can do just a first touch model, or do we want to start going in more, which I know Jeremy's going to cover in a bit, more complicated modeling for content attribution. So yeah, and that's where you start activating your data and maintaining it. And then we start going in the final pillar, fully understanding your data. And I'll leave it with Jeremy on the data science stats side.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about data science and stats, and they're both underpinned by R and Python. And okay, yes, I'll say Python as well. And I think here we recognize the importance that R and Python are two very powerful languages, but when they're used together, they can become ultimately powerful for you. And it's about using the right tool for the job. So I might be an R programmer of 20 years, but I recognize the importance and the use for Python in certain solutions as well. And by having a base set of data and a base set of understanding as to what that data is doing and what your brand health looks like, you can start asking some more interesting questions. So those questions might actually solve bigger business challenges that you've been thinking about solving for years. So let's start very basic. You know who your customer is, but you want to think, well, I want to find more of them, or I want my current customers to be doing more with my brand and with my business. Now, you can take a hunch based on the database analytics as to what good value looks like and to who's going to purchase your product next and to where you can go out and find more of these people. But we understand that data is quite complex. No data set has got two variables within it. And data sets are complex. You have multiple data sets that give you an answer to those questions. And bringing all of those together, that's where statistical modeling comes in. So you say to a statistical model, look, here is all the information I've got. This is what I know about my customers. It might be in 3 or 4 different spreadsheets. Let's bring all of those into R so that R can just take the power and bring them all together. But you don't say to it, I want to find 100 new customers. You don't say who's the best customer. You say, here's my data. Tell me what you think. And this is where statistical modeling comes into its own. You're not trying to give it an answer. You're saying, I want you to give each customer a score. And that score is somewhere between 0 and 100 as to how likely they are to purchase again, or somewhere between 0 and 100 to how likely they are to be high lifetime value. And then from that, you can feed that back into your CRMs and you can use that for segmented marketing. So you could use it for audiences on some of our most popular social platforms. I won't sit here and reel them off and tell you which platforms I like more than the others, but if you want to go into social remarketing, you can use them there. You can also use it for email marketing. So where I've seen people use it really successfully is splitting their marketing mailing list into different segments. These are the people that are going to buy now. These are the people that are going to spend lots and lots of money. Let's show them the higher ticketed items. These are the people that have a lower level of disposable income. They're not going to buy the £500 item, but they might buy something for £50. And that's still really valuable to us as a business because we're selling that off. You can then look at it from a marketing perspective. And I think this is where we've touched upon MMM and marketing analytics before. So statistical modeling is really good at trying to break down the noise in your marketing investment. Let's say you're advertising online and offline at the same time, and offline you've got some TV and radio and billboards and God knows what else. You're probably still doing something in print. And then online you've got search, and you might have that across Google and Bing, and you've got social on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and then you've got some display ads. And then somebody says, "Oh yeah, but we've had 200 sales this week. What led to those 200 sales?" It's really hard to break that down unless you've got a strong statistical model. And the advantage of tools such as R and Python is that that model is fully customizable. You're not using a black box that you can't understand and control. You understand and you can use the statistics behind the model in R and Python to control that and come towards an outcome and a resolution that you can understand, but that's also meaningful and says, oh, look, take that 10K, take that off that platform and put it here, and you'll get a better result for your brand from doing that. And there's naturally a lot more. I think with statistical modeling, it's kind of what you want it to be, really. So whatever your challenge is, there is a way that you can model the data to be able to solve that challenge. So there's other things you can do. There's text analytics as well. And I think you've got to recognize that data isn't just a pool of numbers. So what people are saying, you could build statistical models on that. What are the top topics or themes that are coming out of your reviews? What could you change as a brand? So there really is kind of no end to how you can use statistical modeling, but it's embracing that and using those models rather than trying to say, oh yeah, but we've been doing this the same way for 20 years. Those that really embrace the models are those that make the biggest gains with their brand. Anyway, I will probably stop talking for now because I could go on for hours and hours on end. But but naturally, if this kind of thing interests anybody, we're more than happy to have a chat and talk about what we can do to help you fully understand your data and move towards that top level of maturity.
Then finally is to talk around more advanced marketing technologies such as CDPs and DMPs. And I've just put a quick list here. Like I personally use BlueConic. It was where I previously worked at. That was just the partnership of choice, and it was very very good. It was actually more like a hidden gem. It wasn't one of the big names, but yeah, they are big investments. We'll talk about it a bit more, but they're not cheap. The fees and licenses per annum. Um, yeah, we listed some of Blue Connect segment. Salesforce have their own CDP, and then DMPs. Different. They work in tangent. You should ideally have both. The first one actually being the most underlooked, I guess. No one really realizes, but Google Marketing Cloud is obviously in itself a DMP. In particular, when you've got BigQuery, it's a data management platform. People just kind of overlook that and just go, "Oh, we need to find something more fancy." But you know, each have their own cost and benefit, and we'll talk about that. We'll pick a handful and we'll sort of showcase that in the final episode of the series. But yeah, there's loads different ones. Salesforce has their own one, and Adobe Audience Manager as well. These seem to be top ones again in the industry, but there's so many, and you've got to research, and hopefully I'll give you a little trial or something so you can give it a go and see what works for your business. Perfect. I think that's
Mm.
we can conclude that for the series, and it's been great. And I think one thing we want to note is we kind of mentioned it briefly before, but we do our own, we've got our own marketing maturity model and scorecard. And we can offer that as a service, so at Datacove. So feel free to click in the link below and get in contact with us if that's something of interest, and we'll be happy to continue that conversation there.
Yeah, always happy to do so. It's been really good to go through all of that. And, I think even though I know a lot about, I love these kind of slides where you see lots and lots of tools and technologies on one page. It kind of looks a little bit scary, but I find even when I look at these, whether it's one of our slides or someone else's slides, I'll always learn something from just listening to somebody talk around a model like that. So really looking forward to delving into this series in a lot more detail very soon. And hopefully we will be talking to some of our wonderful viewers about where you are with your data. We'd love to hear from you, even if it's just putting into the comments below where you are, where you'd like to be. Please do that, and we'll be happy to hear more from you and also to speak to you more about where you could get to at some point in the future. But until next time, until the next bit of the series, we'll see you very soon.
Thank you.